Welcome to ATCM, the Emergency Medicine channel. Today we are going to discuss some MCQs related to Emergency Medicine department. So we'll see the questions and answers. First question is 50-year-old patient presented to ER with complaints of chest pain and palpitation. His BP is 120, 88 mm of mercury. He has history of migraine. He is taking treatment for that. He is taking following drugs that I'll show the details, and he had come with chest pain and palpitation. ECG is taken. 2 ECGs are there. When he came, there is an ECG. After some times he has developed another problem. So both ECGs are given. He is taking aspirin, paracetamol with caffeine, SOS, sumatriptan. Which of these drugs can produce this ECG problem? So he is taking aspirin, paracetamol with caffeine, SOS, sumatriptan because he is having migraine. You have 2 ECGs. One ECG is the strip is when he came we have taken, and the second ECG is got a arrhythmia. What is this arrhythmia? What is the first ECG? Which is the drug can produce this problem? So you can think about this. The first strip is showing a QT prolongation. Second ECG shows Torsades pointis. You can see the twisting of axis of this ECG with a wide complex polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. So it is Torsades pointis. First ECG is QTC prolongation. We will see the answer. Long QTC and Torsades pointis and ventricular tachycardia all are side effect of the drug sumatriptan. Sumatriptan is a drug which is used in migraine. Both aspirin, paracetamol, caffeine, sumatriptan, all drugs are used for migraine, but sumatriptan can produce prolonged QT and Torsades pointis. So that is the answer for this question. We will see the second question. 23-year-old patient came to emergency room with edema, erythema after consuming seafood. She also has difficulty in breathing. After giving adrenaline, which drug you prefer to give? From the following options, you can give a lot of drugs, but which of these drugs which is given here can be given after the initial treatment for anaphylaxis or allergy? The options are ranitidine, paracetamol, atropine, metoclopramide. So patient had allergy, anaphylaxis following seafood consumption, and after giving adrenaline, that is a drug of choice in anaphylaxis. What are the other drugs to be given? Among the following options, which drug you can prefer? We will see the answer. Answer is ranitidine, 1 mg per kg intravenous dose. Both H1, H2 antagonists are used as an adjunctive therapy in anaphylaxis. Remember, H1 is indicated, H2 is only an adjunct therapy. H2 receptor blockers are only adjunct therapy. Ranitidine is a H2 blocker. So we can give adrenaline, we can give H1 blocker, H2 blocker, steroid. The options here are ranitidine, paracetamol, atropine, metoclopramide. So ranitidine is the most appropriate answer for this given choice. We will go for the third question. Question number 3. 25-year-old female presented to ER after consuming 15 tablets of 500 mg paracetamol. She had depression. Patient appears symptomatically better, but Rimac-Matthew nomogram showed an elevated serum acetaminophen levels. That means she has got a toxic paracetamol level in her blood. What is the drug of choice to be administered? We have options N-acetylcysteine, L-ornithine, L-aspartate, ursodeoxycholic acid, all of the above. So all these drugs are used in liver disease, but which is a drug of choice for paracetamol poisoning? We will see the options. Most of you may be knowing the answer. It is N-acetylcysteine. That is an antidote for paracetamol poisoning. When the toxic level of paracetamol is there in our blood, we have to give N-acetylcysteine. Loading dose of N-acetylcysteine is 150 mg per kg in 200 ml of 5% dextrose given over 15 minutes, followed by maintenance dose of 50 mg per kg in 500 ml 5% dextrose given over 4 hours, then 100 mg per kg in 1000 ml of 5% dextrose given over 16 hours. So this is a complete protocol for paracetamol poisoning. So that question answer we got. Now we have fourth question. A 50-year-old lady with renal failure, creatinine 8 mg per deciliter. She is on digoxin for left ventricular failure with atrial fibrillation. That is the most important indication for digoxin, left ventricular failure with atrial fibrillation. She is on amlodipine, aspirin, Lasix, sorbitrate, came with history of giddiness to ER. We have taken an ECG. You have the ECG with you. What is the diagnosis as per ECG? So we have an ECG. What is your diagnosis? Supraventricular tachycardia, atrial fibrillation with bradycardia, atrial flutter with complete heart block, junctional ectopic. What is the most appropriate diagnosis for this ECG? Patient is on digoxin, creatinine is very high. So this patient can develop digoxin toxicity because she is taking regular dose of digoxin, but she has got renal failure that can produce digoxin toxicity. What is the most appropriate answer for this ECG? We will see the answer. It's atrial flutter with complete heart block. You can see the RR interval, they are fixed, and there is sawtooth appearance in the baseline and fixed RR interval. There is no change at all. Both in atrial fibrillation with bradycardia and atrial flutter with bradycardia, there may be some amount of change in the RR interval. Here it is fixed and extreme bradycardia is there. So that goes in favor of a digoxin toxicity and complete heart block. This patient is treated with a temporary pacemaker and digoxin was withdrawn from the regimen. She reverted to sinus rhythm with normal conduction after sometimes after initiating dialysis, and digoxin was withdrawn from the treatment regime. So this ECG shows extreme bradycardia because of complete heart block and patient is having atrial flutter. Okay. Now we'll go to the question number 5. Patient is known case of DVT. He is on treatment for the same with heparin. On routine examination, when the patient is on heparin, she has got bleeding tendencies like her APTT is prolonged and she's got bleeding tendency. What is a drug of choice? From the following group of drugs you can select, following treatment you can select, which can reverse the toxicity of heparin or side effect of heparin. So he has got a bleeding tendency. Drugs are protamine sulfate, L-thrombopag, blood transfusions, platelet transfusion. Which is the most appropriate treatment for a patient who is on heparin and severe bleeding tendency and prolonged coagulation markers? We'll see the options. It's a very simple question. Most of you may be knowing the answer. The answer is protamine sulfate. Protamine sulfate 1 mg IV neutralize approximately 90 units of heparin activity derived from the lung tissue, or about 115 units of heparin derived from intestinal mucosa. do not exceed the dose 50 milligram per dose. So protamine sulfate neutralizes approximately 1 milligram neutralizes approximately 100 units of heparin. So that is a approximate neutralization power. So protamine sulfate is the answer for this question. Now question number 6. Patient presented with fever, neck rigidity, headache since past 2 days. On examination, Kernig-Brudzinski sign is positive. That shows she has got meningitis. 3 years back, Ommaya reservoir procedure was done for this patient in view of intracranial tumor. CSF study shows Staphylococcus aureus MRSA. Platelet count is 45,000. The drug of choice in this patient is, you can select from the following groups: vancomycin plus rifampicin, cefixime ampicillin plus linezolid, ceftriaxone plus ampicillin plus vancomycin, all of the above. Anything can be selected. What is the answer for a patient who is having post-procedure MRSA meningitis with thrombocytopenia? Is it vancomycin plus rifampicin, or a drug combination with linezolid, or vancomycin with ceftriaxone ampicillin? What is the drug of choice? We can see the answer. The drug of choice here is vancomycin plus rifampicin. Linezolid is a good drug, but when the platelet counts are low, we may not take linezolid, and it is not the first line drug for meningitis. It is vancomycin plus rifampicin. Vancomycin dose is 60 milligram per day IV. Maximum dose is 4 gram per day. That is 60 milligram per kg per day in 4 divided dose. So that is a dose. You have to add rifampicin with the regime. So that is a choice in this patient. Now question number 7. 35-year-old male patient who is on treatment from the dermatology department for leprosy presented to ER with acute pain in the epigastric region. What is the investigation of choice to be done? So patient is on leprosy treatment, presented with acute epigastric pain. What is the investigation of choice? That is a question. You have options: amylase, lipase, USG abdomen, liver function test, urine routine. What is the disease you suspect? What is the investigation of choice? That is a question. We'll see the answer. Answer is amylase lipase. This patient can have dapsone induced pancreatitis. That is a diagnosis, and investigation of choice, everybody know that amylase lipase. But what you should understand is dapsone can produce lot of side effects for the patient. One of the side effect is pancreatitis. There the lipase will be classically elevated. Now we'll go to the next question. Question number 8. 50-year-old male with history of severe chest pain came to ER. He also had past history of myocardial infarction. Now he has got a pansystolic murmur in the mitral area. What may be the reason for the same? So he had myocardial infarction in the recent past. Now he has got a pansystolic murmur in the mitral area. What may be the reason for the murmur? That is the question. So it can be due to mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, aortic regurgitation, aortic stenosis, all of the above. What is the answer? So what is the reason for his pansystolic murmur after myocardial infarction? We'll see the answer. It is mitral regurgitation secondary to papillary muscle dysfunction due to acute myocardial infarction. It can occur in 1 to 3% of patients, and it is an independent long-term cardiovascular mortality. So these patients can have pulmonary edema, so many problems patient can have. So post myocardial infarction, papillary muscle dysfunction and mitral regurgitation is the answer. Question number 9. A 25-year-old woman who is status post valve replacement surgery for rheumatic heart disease. Now she is planned for cesarean section in 2 weeks. What is the antibiotic of choice should be given as a prophylaxis for the same? So she had post rheumatic heart disease valve transplant. Now she is selected for a cesarean section. What is the infective endocarditis prophylaxis we have to give? Amoxicillin, levofloxacin, piperacillin tazobactam, ampicillin plus gentamicin, all of the above. Which is the drug of choice should be given in a high risk patient like this? We will see the answer. Answer is, when the antibiotic prophylaxis is recommended in high risk patient like this, the preferred regime is ampicillin 2 gram IV or IM with gentamicin 1.5 milligram per kg body weight, administered within 30 minutes of procedure, followed by ampicillin 1 gram IV or IM or amoxicillin 1 gram orally 6 hours later. So what options we had is, the option is ampicillin plus gentamicin is the answer for this question. So we had amoxicillin, but that alone may not be enough. This patient is high risk patient with an abdominal procedure. So ampicillin plus gentamicin is the ideal choice. Now we will go to the question number 10. 50-year-old patient presented to ER with severe headache, nausea, vomiting, increased blood pressure. On examination, it is found that he has got no response to pupillary light reflex, decreased mental abilities, seizure and shallow breathing. He was diagnosed with intracranial space occupying lesion 2 weeks back. So he had ICSOL. Now he has come with seizure, altered behavior, and raised ICP features. So he is waiting for his biopsy reports. What is the drug of choice in this scenario to improve the patient's status? We have dexamethasone, prednisolone, methylprednisolone, hydrocortisone. All are steroids in this option. Which is the ideal steroid for a patient who is having ICSOL with raised ICP? We will see the answer now. Answer is dexamethasone. Dexamethasone is a steroid drug that has proven benefit in reducing the edema causing brain tumors. Dexamethasone is most commonly used for management of vasogenic edema and increased ICP in patients with brain tumor. The starting dose is 4 to 8 milligram per day dexamethasone. So you can give dexamethasone. This is a good steroid which can cross the blood-brain barrier, and it may not produce fluid and salt retention like other steroids. The dose is 4 to 8 milligram IV. So that is a drug of choice in patients who is having brain edema, mostly due to ICSOL. Even it can be tried in patients who is having meningitis. Okay. Now question number 11 is, 50-year-old male with chronic renal failure, creatinine 7, came with BP 200 by 140 mm of mercury. He is edematous and tachypnic. Which is the hypertensive drug of choice, antihypertensive drug of choice that is contraindicated in this patient? Question number 11. Now we will go to the question number 11. 50-year-old male with chronic renal failure, creatinine 7 mg per deciliter, came with very high BP 200 by 140 mm of mercury. He has edematous because of renal failure, tachypnic because of pulmonary edema. Hypertensive drug, antihypertensive drug which is contraindicated in this case. All these drugs can be used in acute BP elevation, but what is a drug which is contraindicated in this scenario? Nitroglycerin, that is NTG, labetalol infusion, prazosin tablets, sodium nitroprusside infusion. Which is the drug which is contraindicated here? So NTG, labetalol, prazosin, sodium nitroprusside. BP is very high, patients having renal failure. We will see the answer. Answer is sodium nitroprusside. Prolonged infusions of nitroprusside should be avoided in patients with renal failure. Thiocyanate serum concentration can increase and patient can go to cyanide toxicity because of renal failure. That is a problem. So this drug should be avoided in a patient who is having high BP. And here we can go for NTG infusion. That's a safe drug in this patient. But sodium nitroprusside is a not preferred drug, so that is contraindicated in. We'll go to the next question, question number 12. 26-year-old lady came to ER with one-day history of left-sided facial deviation. So she has got left-sided facial deviation because of the facial nerve paralysis on the opposite side. It's element type of facial weakness. Parotid gland swelling, eye pain and redness of eye. She had mild fever for 2 weeks. Her X-ray shows mediastinal lymphadenopathy. CRP is very high, 55 mg per liter. Serum calcium is very high, 11 mg per deciliter. Alkaline phosphatase is moderately elevated. What is the possible diagnosis for this patient? She had LMN facial palsy, acute onset, parotid gland enlargement, uveitis features, mild fever for 1 or 2 weeks. Chest X-ray shows mediastinal lymphadenopathy, CRP is elevated, calcium is slightly elevated, alkaline phosphatase is elevated. What is the possible diagnosis? Answers are multiple myeloma, Hereford syndrome, mumps, Sjogren syndrome. So what is the diagnosis for this patient? Whether it is multiple myeloma, calcium is elevated, but alkaline phosphatase is elevated, so multiple myeloma is ruled out. Mumps can be there, Sjogren syndrome can be there, Hereford syndrome. So these are the options. We'll see the answer. Answer is Hereford syndrome. Hereford syndrome or uveoparotid fever manifests as swelling of the parotid gland due to sarcoid infiltration. It's a part of sarcoidosis, uveitis, chronic fever, and rarely patient can present with LMN type of facial nerve palsy. One of the common causes for LMN facial palsy is Bell's palsy. After that, sarcoidosis is one important cause for LMN facial palsy. Hereford syndrome is self-limited, but we have to treat for sarcoidosis. This type of conditions we have to give steroids. So Hereford syndrome is a part of sarcoidosis that can present with LMN type of facial palsy, progressive fever, uveitis with parotid gland enlargement. So we have discussed 12 multiple choice questions which are related to emergency medicine department. Thank you.